all about the 2.4 km. Okay, so first of all, just a quick poll, right? Do you guys use the training program for your 2.4 km? Just a quick one. Anybody can you just try this? Is anybody able to work? Okay, hopefully it's working. Okay. Okay, anybody? Okay. Nobody. Okay. Can we have a few more participants? There are 27 of you guys, 24. Why or 24 of 38? Interesting. Okay, so most people seem to not have a training program, yeah? All right. Okay. So today we're going to talk about four things, all right? The energy systems in the body, the energy system contribution in the 2.4 km, and also the supercompensation principle, okay, which I will explain one by one, okay? So first of all, let's break it down and make it simple. There's an aerobic and anaerobic system in our body, okay? The aerobic system uses oxygen, okay, glucose plus oxygen. It produces a lot of energy, a lot of ATP, which is the currency for energy, and the byproducts are carbon dioxide and water. And examples, clear cut is a marathon, right? You can run a long distance and you are breathing. Okay. Next, we have the anaerobic system, which only uses glucose only, and it does not. It's just imagine you sprint 100 meters. Okay, you can hold your breath, you can run it, you get some energy, you get a lot of lactic acid produced. Okay, so just broadly thinking, there are two energy systems in the body, and they are always being used in the spectrum. Okay, so look at a case study, right? I'm just going to tell you that a marathon is 97.5% aerobic, okay, versus anaerobic only 2.5% contribution. Now, what is the implication, right? The logical implication for marathon training, therefore, is that you should spend 97% of your time in the aerobic system, right? And only 2.5% of a training should be in an anaerobic system. And this is roughly how I did it. So that is why when I was training in US, when I was taking 1 year off work to try to qualify for the Olympics, I went to US to train, and this is our training program. Essentially, you can see that a whole load of easy runs, which is training the aerobic system, and only 2 sessions, which we go really hard. Okay, and we do this week in, week out for many months. Okay, and look at this. So imagine over 1 week, I spent 11 hours doing aerobic training and only 1 hour doing hard training. Okay, and roughly the aerobic to anaerobic ratio is 90% to 10%. Okay, so this is the logic here. Now, and this is just not my experience, all right? So in evidence, if you look at the literature, this is what we call the polarization method. Okay, simply put, you spend a lot of time in the easy runs, okay? The aerobic you see, you can see there's very high volume, and then there is very little in the middle zone and a bit in the high zone. So this is polarization training method that we are describing, and is well known in sports science. Okay, and many books purport this training method. Okay, so now I just want you guys to have a guess, all right? So if you understand the logic behind the marathon training, now we just simply need to know what is the ratio for the 2.4 km, right? Does this make sense, right? So I just want you guys to hazard a guess, right? What do you think is the aerobic to anaerobic ratio for the 2.54 km? Having known now that the marathon is 97:3, okay? Hazard a guess, guys. Okay, I'm gonna just let's see whether the results come out. Okay. All right, you also can put, okay, so we can see that, okay, so just imagine how chuan you are, right, in the 2.4 km. The marathon is 97.3, and then you run a 2.4 is quite chuan, right? So roughly, what do you think is the ratio for the 2.4 km? Okay, so interestingly, well, seems like many people get it get it correct, right? So it's 80-20, indeed, right? So let me show you, let me prove it to you, right, guys? So look at this. So there are many studies on this, right? So you can see here, over here is a distance in this chart here, 500 all the way to 3,500, and you can see that for 3,500, 86% in males, 94% in females is contributed by the aerobic system. And for 1,500 is 77% for males, 86% for females. Okay, aerobic. So roughly, if you're going to look at the best scenario, roughly, right, it's really about 80% aerobic. Okay, so now what's the logic here? The logic then, if 80% of the energy contribution is from aerobic training, then truly, right, 80% of our weekly training should be in the aerobic zone. This is the logic. Okay, that means many people who go out there every day to run a hard run thinking that they can train effectively for 2.4 km is actually not doing it correctly. You must realize that 80% of your training must be easy. Okay? Okay, that's the first principle, right? Number one, so just remember this thing. Now, the first point is 80-20. The ratio is 80-20 for the 2.4 km. Okay, second thing that we need to understand is the super compensation principle. So look at this chart. This is a chart of your fitness baseline. After a training session, okay, you are tired. Makes sense, right? And therefore, you are actually getting fatigued. Your fitness actually drops. That is why if you go and run another session a few hours later, you will feel very tired because you are in the fatigue zone. Now, if you continue resting, what happens is the body recovers, and at some point, you will arrive back at baseline. And if you rest a bit more, you get into a super compensation zone, right? And your fitness is now higher than what it was previously. Okay, so now what is training then? Training is meant for you to repeat this continuously by catching at the peak when your body is at the super compensation zone, and then you continue and do another training cycle, and then you go up. You super compensate, you do another training, and it goes up. Right? So rest is indeed part of training. If you hear that axiom, people say recovery is part of training, that is true because you need to recover to super compensate and to keep going upwards. Okay. Now, conversely, if you keep doing difficult runs every day, all right, one run you do on Monday, Tuesday you run, then therefore what will happen is that you don't even get a chance to recover, and what happens is your body keeps going down. Right? So therefore, the trick is that you need to capture yourself and give yourself enough time to recover in order to maximize that super compensation. Okay, so there are two implications, therefore, right? Number one, you need to have rest days, right? You need to have rest days to allow the super compensation to keep going up, right? But however, you have too many rest days, then imagine you'll always go back to baseline and you will not improve, right? However, you have too little rest days, then what happens? It will keep going down. So this is the balance, okay? And again, if you look at this chart, consistency is key. The moment you take 1 month off, for example, this one will go back down to baseline, and you start again, okay? So the understanding of super compensation has two implications. Number one, you need some rest days to allow for super compensation. Number two, too many rest days will reduce the effectiveness. All right? Why some people cannot join? Okay, it's okay. No choice. All right. Okay, so this is the key. Next. So the third point that I want to share is the periodization. So number one, we learn about 80-20 principle. Number two, we learn about super compensation. The third thing is when we need to learn about periodization. So the logic is here. You don't begin studying for PSLE in primary one, right? You need to pace yourself properly, right? And everything in life is about periodization and seasons. And this is aimed to account for super compensation in a macro level, not on a daily basis, but on the grand scheme of things over weeks and months, you want to really periodize, okay? And this is seen in many training programs, okay? And for example, this is a chart of super compensation, right? You super compensate, you improve, you take a planned recovery to prevent injury, all right? You allow your fitness to drop a bit, but then you continue building, okay? And you go through this periodization every few weeks, okay? And there are many phases in which people can describe this periodization, all right? They are ranging from 4 to 6 phases, okay? And what we will do is that we will use a 5 training block system, all right? We will have a base training, a threshold training, a specific, a taper, and a race, which I'll describe one by one later. And we will have intentional recovery weeks in between major blocks to prevent injury. Okay, and we will not be doing the same thing every week. There will be some variation, and we will get more and more specific in order for you to pick for your 2.4 km race. Okay, so this is the first module. The first module, you need to understand that the 2.4 km is 80% aerobic. All right, and therefore training must be 80% aerobic and only 20% in the anaerobic zone. Okay, next we understand that we have to apply the super compensation principle, and therefore you will need sufficient recovery, rest days between sessions. And number three, we will need to periodize our training in order to peak properly for any race.